Hello there, I'm Michael Steinman from Jazz Lives, and I'm sitting in the Napa, California living room of two new friends, Lee Taylor and Patsy Ann Taylor, who found me. Lee's father was Herb Taylor, a trombonist, arranger, possibly composer, who played in Red Nichols and other people's bands, and I found out about him the way you did also by seeing the Vitaphone short with Herb in the company of Red and Pee Wee and Tommy Toonan, Leo McConville, Eddie Condon singing. And these two nice people found me through Jazz Lives, and they've been doing genealogical research into Lee's parents and Patsy Ann's in-laws, George Herbert Taylor,
Right.
and Viola Taylor or June Taylor. I don't know which came first, but we're going to find out. In front of me on the table is a sheaf of photographs, extraordinary ones autographed to Herb from Red Nichols, the Boswell sisters, and other celebrities I haven't figured out yet. But thank you, Lee. Thank you, Patsy Ann. Tell me something about Herb Taylor.
Well, Dad was born in 1908,
06.
06, and Mom in 07.
Correct.
Okay. Dad, early on in his music life, was playing trombone for the Stockton Record newspaper. At I think age 14, he was inducted into the Musicians Union, which is first of its kind. I think he's very young. He was quite a musician, quite a trombone player. Played in that. That's what this is. A picture. I don't think you can see it, but it's a picture when he was 14 years old, playing for the Stockton Record. Met Mom in Stockton. They married when Dad was 16 and Mom was 15.
Right.
They left town and started a music career that went on till they both passed away in later years. Had a great life, met a lot of people, played a lot of music, and was a big part of their life. A lot of it spent in hotels, playing in orchestras that entertained after dinners, and it was quite the thing in the 20s and 30s. I came along in 1933 in New York, at which time they came back to California, San Francisco, I believe, where Dad's parents lived. And I think Dad, he started his first orchestra in San Francisco, playing what hotel? Was it Fairmont?
The Fairmont.
Fairmont Hotel, and did well in time. Money times were tough and tight in those days, but in the entertainment business, if you were working, you were doing fine, and that's the way that was.
You said he started off as a pianist, and he was like a natural musician.
Yes, very much so. He had an older gentleman giving piano lessons, and I think he must have picked it up just very naturally. All his life he could play any kind of instrument, and I don't think he took lessons on all of them. Certainly the trombone, he must have had some professional help there, but he was a good player, great player, very musical minded, and I think helpful to his fellow horn players in teaching technique and places where they could improve. And so he was just a natural protege, young musician. They had a great time.
And you said he had a brother who also played?
Yeah, Uncle Harry, Dad's younger brother. I think he's 8 years.
8 years.
8 years younger than he. And where Dad went, Uncle Harry went. and Harry played the trumpet. Eventually, Uncle Harry ended up as a copyist at MGM Studios, and then moved up in the music department at MGM. And Dad stayed within the music playing side and creating, composing and arranging.
Now, he's on records with a lot of famous people. As I said, did he talk about any of these people? Do you remember when you were younger about Red Nichols, about the Boswell sisters, about Abe Lyman? Any of these things go floating through?
Yes, names that I was born in 1933, so I really hearing and remembering what Dad might have said at their background probably didn't start till the 40s. And then it was back so far I didn't know who they were talking about or anything. But yes, he played for Abe Lyman. He played for Jimmy Dorsey, Red Nichols. Now I'm getting old and I can't remember all of them, but there was a lot of them. I remember certain names of friends of his that he kept in touch with, particularly the ones that moved to Los Angeles, a lot of them to work at the film studios playing background music for film. Tommy Toonan, I struggle with it, I can't.
That's all right. You already passed the exam. You said, though, that he ended up in the film industry after that. Well, first up, you said there was an orchestra in San Francisco that he led with somebody named Bob Beal.
Yes.
Do I have the name right?
That's true. He unfortunately, he didn't speak a lot about his background. I'm sure he talked to his fellow musicians, and certainly Mom did too. They were a team. Whatever they did, they were a team. They were partying or working on a film or going grocery shopping. They were always together and always promoting each other. A good couple.
Well, how did he end up working for Dmitri Tiomkin?
I think he was, through the 40s and into the early 50s, he was under contract with various studios. In those days, all the studios had their own orchestra. I don't think they do that anymore. And then I think he was approached by Tiomkin because he had something of a history and a reputation for arranging and composing. And he started working with Dmitri Tiomkin. I think the first film I recall was Champion, which was, can't think of his name.
Kirk Douglas.
Kirk Douglas' first movie, I think. And right on through High Noon and 55 Days at Peking and
The Alamo.
Alamo.
Silk Stockings. Easter Parade.
Yes. Anything Tiomkin did, from Champion to his last film, whatever that was, Dad worked on with him, and moved away from actually playing an instrument other than the piano, which we have here in our room. And then moved on to a hobby that he had, which was cooking. And he used to make a barbecue. He and my mother used to make a barbecue sauce at home, which was based on my grandmother's, one of her recipes for barbecue sauce. And Dad would make up a 5-gallon batch and get some bottles and take them to the fellows in the orchestra. I think he was at MGM or Fox at the time. And it was one of those things that the guys would take it home, use it, come back and say, Herb, that stuff's so darn good, you ought to put a label on it and sell it, which he did. He had the neighbor next door. Their nephew was working for the LA Times in the art department made up a label. They called themselves Mr. and Mrs. T. I think they sold the first case to a liquor store up the street on Pico Boulevard next to Fox Studio. And it was a new career for them. He was still doing composing and arranging, but he and Mom took on this thing, and they were Mr. and Mrs. T.
Now, this is the famous Bloody Mary mix we were talking about.
Came to the Bloody Mary mix while they were out peddling barbecue sauce. Mom used to like Bloody Marys, and she used to complain about them because they were never consistent. So Dad came up with a couple of recipes, finally got what he thought was good. I was working for him, still in high school when this all started. And we rented some space in a food products company out in the San Fernando Valley. We go out there during the week and bottle, come back a couple of nights later and label and stuff, box it up and get it ready for sale. They used bar suppliers as their distributors and sales force. One year, 1964, a gentleman that owned Jim Beam,
Harry Bloom,
was on his yacht in Beam's headquarters was in Chicago, but he would spend his winters in Miami, and he had a yacht that went back and forth from Chicago to New Orleans. A friend of his on New Year's Day, 1964, came on board and brought a couple of bottles of Mr. and Mrs. T Bloody Mary mix. And early on the following year, Mr. Bloom, he liked the Bloody Mary mix so much, he sent his people out to buy the company, and in 1965, Jim Beam owned 80% of Mr. and Mrs. T.